All right, game lab number 9. Let's get to work. We're going to use the draw loop now. We start using the draw loop, and today we're just going to do it with some shapes and some random numbers. I'm going to ask you to create 3 separate short programs. They don't have to be all that long. They all have to use the draw loop. They're going to have to use some shapes, and you're going to have to use some random numbers. I'll show you some examples, and you can branch out and try all kinds of things. All right, there's more on the handout than what I've got right here, but I'm going to just hop into it and do it. So let's get over here to code.org, and I'm going to just go to Create Game Lab, and I'll just get started with a new Game Lab project. I'll just rename this and call it Loop. I'll call it Draw Loop. Sorry, Draw Loop 1. Draw Loop 1. We're going to do 3 of them. All right. Now, this time, we've been taking this function draw thing and taking it off. And we're not going to this time. We're going to leave it there. Here's what happens with the draw loop. If you put commands inside there, they get done over and over and over and over and over. And today it's going to be an endless loop. They'll go forever. Forever. And you can have some fun with this, and there are things to consider about exactly what you want to try. But let's take a look at an example. I'm going to drag over a background command and put it in the draw loop, and I think I'll just say light gray. All right. Now I'm going to bring over a stroke color command and drop it inside there, and I want my stroke color to be black. Now things like stroke color and having a stroke weight, and even having, the stroke, you could say no stroke if you wanted to. That's up to you. I'm just doing an example. You feel free to try your own ideas. So I've got a stroke color, a stroke weight. Now I'm going to want a fill color, and I'm going to make this random. I want it to be all different colors. So to make it random, I'm going to go to the RGB setting and click off of that. You have to click off of it because that'll put 3 separate holes in there for the RGB numbers. Then I'm going to go to the math drawer, and I'll pull in random number blocks and drop those in there. And those random number blocks are going to go from 0 to 255 on all of them because those are the parameters of typical RGB color numbers. Now I'm going to go back to the drawing drawer, and I'm going to get an ellipse command. And what I want to do with this one, and this is where it gets up to you. This is where you get, start using your imagination and think, well, what do I want to try here? But what I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to make a random X and a random Y for the ellipse. And I'll set those parameters from 0 to 400. Oops, sorry. And 0 to 400. So they could appear anywhere on the screen. You got a random X and a random Y, and it could be anywhere on the screen. I'm going to keep the circles kind of small. I'm going to make them like 30 for the width and 30 for the height. That could be random as well, if you want it. But I'm just going to go ahead and plug in a 30 and a 30. And let's see what this looks like. Now, this isn't going to just draw one ellipse, because here's the deal with this function draw thing. It's called a draw loop. It's going to keep doing these things over and over and over. Everything that's inside that green big brackety thing there, it's going to do it over and over and over. And in fact, this is going to be an endless loop. There is nothing in this program to make it stop. So you'd have to hit the reset button to make it stop. So I'm going to go ahead and run it. And you see, if you look at my game screen now, you'll see what I'm getting. Now I'm going to show you a variation of this here real quick. I want you to pick up something. This is kind of like little blinking random colored circles all over the place. I'm going to go ahead and hit reset. And I could experiment with things like, what if I made them bigger? Right, so I just changed the 30 and the 30, and now I've got bigger circles kind of blinking all over the place. But here's the thing I want you to consider playing around with. I put a background command inside the draw loop. Okay. Well, so every time the computer, what the computer's doing is doing these commands, boom, 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 and then it comes back up the top and it does them again, 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 and it just keeps going. Every time it sees a background command, it wipes the screen clean. Wipes it off, wipes it clean. That's what a background command does. It wipes the screen off and then sets it to whatever color you have specified in there. So it's wiping it clean, and then you're getting a random circle that's drawn, in some location. Now, it's happening really fast. So it kind of looks to you and me like there's more than one circle on there, but that's because our eyes have a memory, and actually the circle that's been erased, we still see it for just a fraction of a second. All right, well, what would happen if I took this background command outside? Look what I did there. I'm going to take it outside the draw loop. So now, again, the computer does these commands in order. So it's going to do line 1. It's going to set the background to gray, but then it's not going to do a background command ever again because it's going to get into this loop thing, this draw loop, and just go over and over and over. Well, what happens now? Oh, a little bit different result there, isn't it? So now inside the loop, the background is not getting cleared every time, and so the longer I let it run, the more the circles just pile up and pile up and pile up. So that is an example of kind of a little graphic program with random numbers and using the draw loop as an example. So I'm going to go ahead and hit reset there, and then what you need to do is just kind of I'm going to go over here to create, and I'm going to go to Game Lab, and got to make another one, right? Got to forge ahead, move on, see what else you can do. Let's try something a little bit different. I'm going to bring over, and again, you don't have to do it just like me. Do other things, right? What if I bring over a background command and stick it outside of the draw loop, and I might say crimson. All right. Now inside the draw loop, and this is where you kind of take off. But I'm going to say I do want a stroke color. I'm going to use some shapes here, and I do want a stroke color on there. I'm going to make it black. I do want a stroke weight, and I'm just going to keep it 3. That's okay with me. I want a fill color, but I just want it to be gold. It's not going to be a random color this time. I just want it gold. And I'm going to use a regular polygon. So this is really kind of a similar idea to what I just did with the ellipses a moment ago, but it's a little bit different. Okay, so on a regular polygon, what you've got here, you've got an x coordinate, a y coordinate, the number of sides, and then this has to do with the size. All right, so it's x, y, sides, and size. I can remember you have to build some random numbers into this, so I can make whatever I want about that random. I could make the x and the y random. I could make it just depends. I think I will. I think I'll make the x and the y random. And you could play with all of this. You could run it and see what it does and then change something. So that's going to be 0, 400, 0, 400. And I think I might do 6 sides. Make a hexagon. That would be a hexagon, right? I'll start off with 50 as the size. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, so it's a little similar to the circles that I did a moment ago, but I'm getting random hexagons all over the screen. They're outlined in black and filled with gold, and they have a random X and a random Y. Now, could you adjust that? Could you do something different? Could you have it make a random number of sides? Could you make it have a random size? Yes, absolutely you could. I'm going to take the size. I'm just going to look at it with smaller hexagons and see what I think about that. All right, I took the size of the hexagons down to 20, and so now I'm getting these little random gold hexagons all over, and eventually it'll fill the whole drawing screen up if you let it run long enough. It'll get to where the whole thing is covered with little hexagons. So I'm going to come up here and rename that, and that's going to be called Draw Loop 2. And then, to finish the assignment, I would need to go ahead and do one more, but what I'll do here is, rather than take the extra time in the movie, I'll go back here and show you, I did some ahead of time. So here's another one that I did. Look at this one. All right. And again, there's so much of this that is up to you. Do your own thing. But what I've got going on here, if you look over at the programming, I do have the background command outside of the draw loop. So I get a whole bunch of circles that pile up. The stroke is black, the stroke weight is 3, the color is random, the fill color is random, and the thing that's random about the ellipses is its width and height. It always has a center of 200, 200. The X and Y are the same every time, but the width and the height are random. Now let's just try this. Let's throw the background command inside the draw loop and run it. Look at it, it looks like that now. Because again, what happens if the background command is inside the draw loop, then the background gets wiped clean every time. And so you don't get that effect of the circles piling up on each other because they're getting erased. Every time the computer runs through the loop, it erases the background. And as you know, which one do you like better? Which one do you think looks better? Do your own thing, right? Do your own thing. So your mission, once again today, is to have 3 of these they're kind of short programs, 3 short programs that use some random numbers. They use the draw loop, right here, this function draw loop, and they use some shapes, right? You're just going to use some ellipses, some rectangles. You could try other things in here, the regular polygon, the shape command. You could try that out. Get creative a little bit and see what you can do. Come up with 3 of them and turn in all 3 links when you're all done. When you go over to Google Classroom, you got to turn in all 3 links. All right, that's it.